Hello, my name is Soraya and this is my presentation on expert witness testimony. In any case, we must keep in mind the processes from beginning to end. When it comes to any type of criminal justice process, we get involved in a case. We evaluate the case based on our positions. If we're law enforcement, we work with a forensic specialist to properly collect the evidence, but we also close out the scene to the public. Once that is done and complete, we then go to the lab or we do further investigation at the stations based on suspects and witnesses, and we get a profile. That's when forensic pathologists come in. And when it's time, they make the proper arrest. Then after that, once we get all the evidence and information, we come up with charges and we get those properly documented. And in some cases, we provide a plea. After a plea is made, we go to pretrial, where we give motion and hearing of what has happened, what we found, what has occurred, and we go through the selection process of getting jurors from the public that meet our proper case needs based off their professional backgrounds and their personal. After that, we go to trial, and this is when our expert testimonies come into play. And then after that, we get a final verdict. That final verdict is made, and we go to the next steps. So we have different types of U.S. court systems. This is going based off of state court. State court is typically civil and criminal cases. Their jurisdiction has a limited general and meeting standards, not as high as federal, but we have the process and ability to put in appeals and that's when they go through review it immediately. This allows trial courts to result in a different decision. This also allows the judge and the jurors to be elected accordingly. We have proper rules and procedures, but that is based off of the state. But when it comes to federal cases, this is more in higher depth, and we have federal constitutional and interstate rulings. We have different laws that come into play. This also has different trials and courts based off the U.S. District, Court of Appeals, or the Supreme Court. Yes, both state and federal have appealing processes, but some may take longer than other. And the judge and the jurors are selected, but the judge is based off precedent and confirmed by a Senate. And they're not as many federal court cases. They're fewer than you would see a civil and a criminal, which is our state court system. So we also have our amendments, but when it comes to our Sixth Amendment, we allow rights to a personnel that's going through trial. This allows them speedy trial, an impartial jury, and allows charges to be informed but based on detail. It won't say, hi, this is what you have 5 years, this is it. It will go into further detail, further information on what is going to happen next. This is when witnesses are confronted, they are asked questions like an expert witness would be, They obtain information based off of these witnesses, based off if they were around the scene at some point of time during what occurred during that case. We do have right to legal counsel, but this allows us due process, transparency, and fairness from the beginning to end. This allows people to speak for themselves, and they are not proven guilty automatically. It's always guilty or not guilty in these cases. So there's some where a Sixth Amendment was defined based off a few cases a long time ago, like Gideon and Wainwright in 1963. This provided our counsel who can't afford one. It allows us our legal representation, and this is where our Miranda rights come in. When we are questioned at any type of moment, we are given our Miranda rights, and we have to understand those rights, and that is read to us when arrested or before any type of questioning. Another case is Crawford versus Washington in 2004. This allowed our Sixth Amendment, but this is when we allow testimonies from expert and witnesses to be provided. And then we have Washington versus Texas in 1967. Well, this compelled witnesses to testify, but it also allowed protection based on the case's information. So when it comes to criminal trials, this is state or public. We have our government versus our defendant. We are provided upon reasonable doubt, and we are held at higher standards, and we do have penalties per the suspect, and that is jail, prison, probation, or fines, maybe even community service. But as a forensic scientist, we are the ones that go out to collect, analyze, and provide our expert testimony, ensure we have our chain of custody documentation, and everything we provide and see. We testify based on DNA and fingerprints and ballistics that may have been found. In these cases, it could be homicide, theft, or even drug offense cases that we go through criminal trial. When it comes to civil trials, we revolve around disputes based on individuals, organizations, companies, but this is based off of certain key importances. So we have a plaintiff versus a defendant. We have a preordinance of evidence. This allows us penalties based off of damages or perform or stopping of actions. So injuries, car accidents, damage of property, and this also comes into family law cases. So as a forensic scientist, we collect evidence based on the scene of where we are at. We do have to take environmental factors into effect if we are outdoors. We do documentation based off a chain of custody to ensure that we know where everything is at and is going to be located at all times. We can never lose track of these items. We go based off of expert testimonies. So we, as the expert, give scientific information, but information that is cleanly presented for the jurors that are not within the scope of science still understand what is going on. And this allows us proper conclusion and collaboration that we have to do from the beginning to end based off of working with law enforcement, any attorneys, or even any jurors that may have questions during this process. So we do have landmark cases. There's a couple. So we have federal rules of evidence. This allows our legal standards to be based off of evidence and being admissible into court. So we have Akumho Tire versus Carmichael in 1999. This case took place based off a vehicle that was driven and tires blew out, causing the car to overturn and a passenger passing away. Due to the death this case happened, it did lead to the doubt standard being put into place, and based off of expert testimony, it also allowed the technical knowledge, not just the scientific, because there was a reliability based on failure to retest and see the accuracy, incompatibility, and reliability of tires that were put on this vehicle. So when we have a testimony at any moment in time, we go based off our qualifications. They need to know who we are, need to know a little bit about our background, just like an interview. We go based off our material evidence as well. We give them a review based, the reports, the evidence that we have found, documentation, and review, but in a simplistic standard and formation. So we also have our methodology. We have ACEV, which is our analysis, comparison, evaluation, verification process. This allows us to compare items, say it's ballistics side to side, but analyzing our evidence, comparing it if we need to, evaluating and giving our proper input based off of a hypothesis we might have had in the beginning to now giving the proper details in court. We go based off opinions and conclusion. So we can have an opinion in the beginning, but we can conclude based off of our evidence and our objectivity, having a clear scope, and based off of the results, we are able to give a clear picture of what we have found, and based off of fingerprints, ballistics, anything we might have collected. We also have to just keep in mind cross-examination. There is some challenges that we do get into when it comes to this information, because environmental factors, different professionals touching items, so we always have to have the proper chain of custody to understand and to show, okay, this item has been collected at this time, this date, and this has how many people have touched it. And that is the end.